We're ready to get started on the assessment inventory, which is one of the key assignments for your senior portfolio. You are welcome to work on this assignment in a group if you would like, of about 3 to 4 students, preferably within your content area. That is especially beneficial if you have not yet taken your curriculum and instruction class, the EDSC 4550, or are not currently enrolled in it, as we'll be doing some work with the core curriculum and you may or may not be familiar with that. So I wanted to take a moment to just give you a little overview of the format that we'll be using for all of the assessments and some things to consider as you work on them. So for each assessment that we create for this portfolio, you'll start by titling the page with the type of assignment or assessment you're creating. That will be followed by the core curriculum that you are using this assessment to measure. So for example, for this one, this is a physical education assessment inventory. Their core might be a little bit different than yours in that it spans grades, but this particular assessment is measuring students' accomplishment of core standard number 2. Students will demonstrate understanding of movement, concepts, principles, etc. Okay, so specifically she tailored this to a volleyball unit. Now I recommend that you use a single unit of instruction. In other words, you keep everything kind of targeted towards the same content for this entire assessment inventory. The reasons for that are, first, it makes it a little easier for you because you always know what you're talking about. You don't have to think about for each assessment, oh, what content should I do this on? You just do it all in the same and it makes it a little bit easier for you. Secondly, it pushes you to consider how you might measure the same content in multiple ways. And maybe you may find that what you thought you'd have your students write a paper about, you'd really rather have them do a portfolio for. So it's a really good idea to have a single unit of instruction in mind for this. If that doesn't make sense, meaning you're not in curriculum and you haven't gone over yet what a unit is, come in and meet with me and we'll talk about how to make this happen for you and your content. Alright, so we've got the title of the assessment at the top, your core curriculum, whatever that might be here, and it can look a lot different depending on your content. This is PE, but then if we look over here, we've got English, and English has some crazy core because the Common Core. So rather than type all of hers out, she just copied in the content that she would be covering in this one, the abbreviated version of that. All right, now I'm going to come back to this PE one for us. You'll notice she then has when. So when does this assessment take place? In this case, it's going to happen at the end of the volleyball unit. So that's what I need to know is when in the unit or the quarter or the semester or whatever this is going to take place. Then you're going to tell me why you're doing it. What's the benefit to you and what's the benefit to your students? What are you all going to get out of this assessment? So this is where I want you to think about why this type of assessment can be so beneficial, and particularly in the way that you designed it. So if you'll notice here, she noted that portfolios help promote self-regulation and metacognition, which is something that we've just learned about in class. All right, this is followed by a what, and in the what you're going to tell me how this assessment is going to be implemented. All right, so this is telling me about how the items for the portfolio are going to be kept, how they're supposed to turn it in, etc. So anything that I need to know before I dive into your assignment description would go in here. Okay. Now as we scroll down, you'll see that this person has actually written an assignment description for the students. In most cases, that's what I want from you. There are a couple of exceptions, which we'll talk about as we go through the semester, but for the most part, we want a full assignment description for the students. That's what we're practicing here. Your ability to write clear instructions and descriptions and things for the students so they know what they're supposed to do. Hopefully, when you finish this assessment inventory, you're going to walk away with 8 different assessments you can use, maybe with just a tiny bit of tweaking, next year when you're student teaching. All right, so she gives an overview of the assignment for the students, then explains what all they should include in their portfolio. And scrolling down, you'll see this. I'll attach this to this video as well so that you can see this in detail for yourself. Then once she finishes describing what should go into this portfolio, and please notice that in this case there's a reflection. A portfolio always has a summative reflection at the end of it. And to get more detail on each assessment type, please go into the unit in which they're introduced, the lesson, in Canvas. So the portfolio is talked about in much more detail in Lesson 2 in the modules area in Canvas. All right, now after she had described the assessment, what the students are supposed to do, she then includes some kind of grading mechanism. This is almost always going to be required. There are a couple of exceptions, self-assessment, the classroom assessment techniques that we'll get to. But for the most part, you're always going to need some kind of grading instrument. And that's going to look different depending on the assessment type. So again, look in this case, Lesson 2, to see more details about how to complete that assessment. All right, you'll see a similar format. I'll come over to this other portfolio here. We've got the core, we've got when it's happening, why she's having her students do it, a quick what. I'd like to see a little bit more here directed towards me so I know how it's being implemented, but that's okay. And then the assignment description for the students, a nice description of what they're supposed to include in their inventory or in their portfolio here. And as you scroll down, she's got some extra stuff. So to go along with some of these parts of the portfolio, she's got little assignment descriptions and writing prompts and things like that to go along with it. So again, you're really practicing actual assessments that you want to deliver to your students. So if it needs extra supplementary stuff, then go ahead and make it. Let's get that done. Then you scroll down, again, we've got a rubric of some sort, so she chose to do a checklist, and then this is what's called a holistic rubric, and it explains kind of what you'd have to do to get various levels on the reflection. Okay, so we'll keep playing with those, but that's kind of how we're going to get started. We're going to start with a self-assessment and a portfolio to go along with our content from Lesson 2 on metacognition and self-regulation. Work with your group, decide the content that you're going to cover if you're going to use a unit, or you'll have to come up with different content for each of the assessments that you do. And then you'll do the same thing, when, why, what, the assignment description for the students, and the grading mechanism, which again you probably don't need for your self-assessment generally. The last thing you're going to do, and we'll talk about this in more detail, and there will be materials in the lesson in which the assessment is addressed as well, but you'll need to also start your final reflection for the assessment inventory. And the first question on that asks about the reliability, validity, fairness or bias, and practicality of each of your assessments. So do this now. Don't wait until the end of the semester to try and reflect on all this stuff. Once you complete your assignment description and rubric, go back through it and think about how reliable is this? How clearly did I write my assignment description? Are my expectations obvious to my students? Do I have a good, clear rubric that will allow me to grade it consistently? This is pretty nice because with the checklist it's either there or it's not, right? But then as we get into the quality of reflections, there might be some room for wiggling in there, okay? All right, how valid is it? Is this assignment aligned directly to the core that you've said it's supposed to measure? How biased is it? With portfolios, we can have some issues for kids with ADHD, organizational problems, autism, and even poverty if they can't afford a folder or binder. So you need to make sure that you've kind of addressed some of those issues. You know, for example, you might want to keep the objects or the artifacts that go into the portfolio in your classroom somewhere. You may want to have some extra folders or binders available for students that need them, etc. All right, then when we get down to practicality, how much time, money, and effort does this require? Now, in many cases, a portfolio, it can go either way. If they're just turning back in things that they'd already accomplished and then reflecting on them, then it's pretty practical for both them and for you grading-wise. If they're doing a great deal of work, for example, this English portfolio over here is quite a bit of work here, then it's a little less practical. That may be okay if it's higher in validity, right? We might do a trade-off there. But this is going to be extra work for them, and you're going to have to go back through and grade these as well, so it's going to be extra work for you. So keep all those things in mind. Start your final reflection as a separate document and start writing these reflections. I expect you to begin with your self-assessment and your portfolio. Do those reflections. Turn the self-assessment and portfolio in by the due date. You've got a week to complete these. And that's how we're going to get started on this assignment. Good luck, everybody.